Hey everyone, welcome back to Poker Fluency. Today we're going to kick off part one of a two-session review of a World Series of Poker $1,500 event final table using the Octopi Poker Vault. Now this is not a final table that my student actually made, unfortunately, but it is a great one to analyze because there are some pretty big deviations from optimal play by the players involved, which gives us a lot to break down. We're going to look at why those mistakes happened, what the correct adjustments might look like, and most importantly, how you can avoid falling into the same traps in your own game. So stick around, take some notes, and if anything catches your eye or raises a question, let me know down below in the comments so we can keep the discussion going. Thanks and enjoy the session. So, anything come up between last time and now that you wanted to specifically focus on?
I've just been looking at some more ICM stuff, mainly. To mind looking at those sorts of things. We finished on rivers, didn't we? And then kind of started looking at like some risk premium as well.
Yeah.
I guess maybe like just how tight we have to be in some when we're opening in some places, and then how loose we can be and how we can kind of target people who are being too tight as well, and things like that. Sure, we could do, but I'm happy for anything sort of in that realm, whatever you think is going to be most effective against people who aren't playing with ICM necessarily.
Sure. Yeah, I think that there's a few different things that we can look at. I think that as opposed to using Wizard this time, one thing that I think would be quite useful is if we look through the vault function on Octopi, because that has a bunch of different final table situations and different spots that are really interesting to analyze, because we have, pre-flop sims and post-flop sims for all kinds of spots. And not all of it is any kind of, it's not all from, Triton spots or anything like that, right? So if I pull that up, we can take a look at what I mean. So let me...
Yeah, very cool. Because I think it'll be pretty common to come up against people that aren't necessarily aware of how tight they need to be playing as some people, and people
Yeah.
who know that ITM exists altogether.
Yeah. I think what you tend to find is that people are, I would describe it as too inelastic to ICM, in that like situations where they're supposed to be very tight, they end up being too loose. And situations where they're supposed to be not that tight, they end up basically tightening up way too much. Let me just, I can't get rid of that. 1 second. Cool. So we've got a ton of different situations in the vault, and they are, solved to a pretty decent degree of accuracy. And we've also got, everything from, some of these super high roller events and things like that, all the way down to, stuff like we've got the 1K seniors right here. Like we've got a lot of events that represent good examples of situations where people are going to make mistakes, right? So if we go to highlight an event where it's maybe not the highest end of the buy-in range, we'll be able to get a sense of how certain sims and scenarios look for, some of the tournaments, some of the final table situations that are maybe a bit more similar to what you might see from some of the, the spots that you're seeing. We've got pre-flop sims for the main event final table there. We don't have to look at necessarily the sims for some of these spots, but there are various hands that are available from, let's say, like this is WSOP 1500, and we've got the hand histories in here. We can review this tournament right here. And like I say, we don't have sims for it, but we could take a look at some of these different hands and sort of discuss what the risk premiums are and things like that. So we've got the premiums down here, even though we don't have the sims. The basic stack setup that we've got is we've got at this final table, this 1500, there's a lot of pretty deep stacks. We've got 137 bigs. We've got 46, 40, 48, 54, 41, 27, 12. So the immediate thing to kind of notice here, and I'm not sure if I don't think we've talked about this in these terms before, but basically stack distribution has the opposite effect to payouts, in the sense that if the payouts are steeper, it makes everything more top heavy, which creates lower risk premiums, less of an ICM factor, right? With stack sizes, a wider distribution of stack sizes, so some really big stacks, some really short stacks, that is going to do the opposite thing. If
Yeah.
the stack sizes are more uneven, it's going to create bigger risk premiums. If the stack sizes are very close together, it's going to actually level out the risk premiums. The same way that, or the inverse of, if the payouts are level, it's going to make the risk premiums really extreme, right? So you've got like, you can almost picture like a four-cornered sort of graphic where you've got, on the one hand, if you've got the most extreme ICM scenario is going to be very uneven stacks with very flat payouts, right? So it's going to be like a satellite, right? If you picture like the bubble of a satellite, you're going to have very uneven stacks, usually like one incredibly tiny stack trying to lip their way into the payouts, and huge ICM as a byproduct of that. And then you flip it around, if you got completely even stacks and the payouts are steep from that given point, which, you know, the very first hand of a tournament, the payouts are effectively steep because you've got a long way to go until you even make any money. You know, the big portion of the prize pool is still a long way away. And everybody's got the same amount of chips. There's no real risk premium. Even if you played a sit and go, you play a 9-handed sit and go with 3 places paid or whatever, everybody starts with the same amount of chips. The risk premiums are not so high because there's no short stacks that everyone's trying to wait out and things like that. And then the exact inverse of that is going to be, you know, let's say there's very top heavy. Well, you've got the top heavy payouts, flat stack structure. It's going to be little less ICM. What people tend to assume is that if you've got the stacks are all roughly equal and the payouts are quite flat, people tend to assume those things amplify each other. But in fact, they contradict each other in that
canceling out.
Yeah. So if the payouts are flat, there's more ICM. But if the stack sizes are also flat, it neutralizes that a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And if the payouts are steep, then it means there's a bit less ICM. But if the stack sizes are really varied, then it also neutralizes that and there's going to be a bit more. So if you look here, we've got a standard kind of WSOP payout structure, which is relatively top heavy. And we've also got a very steep payout structure, which is why, very steep stack size structure. We've got 12 big blinds all the way up to 137 big blinds. So that's why we've got stuff like these 18, 19% risk premiums popping up, right? These premiums are really high because short stack having, you know, only a very small portion of the chips in play. And then, you know, everybody else being a lot deeper, that's changing things fairly dramatically here. And you've got some significant imbalances in terms of, you know, how much of a risk premium each player has against each other. Obviously, the middle stacks are under a ton of pressure against the big blind. Everybody has this huge risk premium against the big blind, except for the 12 big blind stack here. But they're also, you know, they're under a good amount of pressure against each other, right? So even small blind versus under the gun, for example, like they have very similar stacks and they have 13, 14%, you know, risk premiums against each other. It's a scenario where this really does become one of those situations where everybody's kind of waiting out the short stack, right? Everybody's kind of waiting for the short stack to bust. And the big blind, in this case, the chip leader, gets to really apply a lot of pressure as a result. Now, if we sort of fold it around here, Shundan Xiao has Queen Jack off. What do you think of the fold in this spot? We don't have a sim to compare it to, but what do you think of the fold of Queen Jack?
I think I actually like it a lot. I think when there's someone super short, particularly in late position, I think like with collision effect, we kind of just want the button and big blind to just go at each other a little bit, because I think button's probably going to be jamming a pretty close to chip EV, I would imagine. So maybe 30% of hands at 12 bigs, maybe a little bit less.
I mean, they still have, if you look at their premium, button still has a 7.5% against big blind. So they're not like under no pressure at all, but it definitely is. You're absolutely right. I think that hijack has to be quite tight here because there's that added collision effect. First of all, you've got the collision effect of the button being the short stack, but you've also
Mhm.
got the collision effect that comes with the chip leader being in the big blind. So not only do we, when
Yeah,
we
he'd
open,
be calling deck, right? Well, not
well,
deck. He'd be calling
yeah,
pretty wide
he's gonna be
against.
calling wide, but the specifically what I mean about the collision effect is that not only are we dealing with the fact that we have to open into the chip leader's big blind and he's not going to fold a lot, we're also dealing with the fact that when we fold, there's three players that could potentially get into a confrontation against the chip leader, right? So in this
True.
particular spot, the actual, even though the risk premium itself wouldn't change, we would still be in a different scenario because if the chip leader wasn't the big blind, we probably would be able to open this, right? We probably would be fine with opening this. But because the chip leader is the big blind, there's all sorts of different ways that a player can bust here, right? It can just be like nines against ace king against the cutoff. Like cutoff has nines, big blind has ace king, and they just get it in, right? That can just happen so easily.
Yeah.
So there's just a bunch of different reasons for hijack to be folding a bit more here. And when hijack does open, I would suspect that hijack wants to open bigger. They want to open probably like 2.5. That's
Yeah.
generally going to be the case when big blind is the chip leader, and they're going to have so much opportunity to realize equity against you. Opening bigger works pretty well. And the same thing goes for, to some extent, when the chip leader is the button, because the chip leader gets to flat you on the button really wide if you open really small. So I think generally 2.5 is going to be pretty reasonable here.
Yeah.
Does fold to small blind. Small blind kind of has to play pure limp here with the with range, basically. This is fine with 7-6 suited, and he folds. Yeah, I mean, this is chip EV. He can't fold this hand, but against chip leader he can, so that's fine. Okay, David Jackson's going to open. Seems fine.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
I mean,
it's close to a fold, I'd imagine. With
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think 7-handed, I would be surprised to see king queen off fold here because this is, he's second in chips. Like he has a high risk premium against the chip leader, but the chip leader is just one player. The chip leader can't he doesn't get to just 3-bet everything. So I would say here that the open here, like this is under the gun 7, obviously. Chip EV open here would be like 18, 19%. He's probably opening like 14, 15%, something like that here. But king queen is a good hand to open though, because it has enough blocking power that you're going to do fine this way. So I'd be surprised if the hand folds. King jack though, I think fold is fine, but king queen, I don't think you can fold. What do you like with the tens here in the low jack?
I think we can probably flat behind. I think the hand's strong enough to back jam again if the chip leader starts applying pressure, because I think he's going to be doing it pretty liberally.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly can. Yeah, I think that chip leader coming along with some squeezes there.
Yeah, and I think it's too strong of a hand to be raise folding. But I don't think we can call a 4-bet.
Yeah, I think this is kind of awkward, right? In that there are a lot of spots where we don't really want to do. I'm sorry.
Probably all the decisions just suck with tens there, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean they kind of do, but it's also not that big of a deal because ultimately, we have a reasonably high risk premium here, but like, what is it? We're under the gun 7, we're low jack versus under the gun 7, 14%. So that's pretty high, but it's not like 19% like this, like the second chip leader versus chip leader. I think it's acceptable to have some flats here. It's a pretty limited flatting range, but I don't think we have to play 3-bet or fold. I think that's more applicable for when we're a bit shallower and we're just purely thinking about getting flatted. Or we're purely thinking about like we're not really going to get flatted is what I mean here. The thing is that this stack depth, when we 3-bet, we don't really get 4-bet jammed on as much. We do get flatted a bit. I don't think it's ever going to be a disaster here, but I would prefer to actually see a flat. And I think in some spots like this, you do tend to see the 3-bet range actually become more polar because we don't have as much incentive to have that kind of linear small 3-bet sort of approach.
Yeah.
So she does 3-bet. Chip leader then comes along and just rips, which is wild. I did not expect this with the king 3 of hearts. I kind of understand it, but at the same time, it's like excessively aggro. I don't think I would fold tens here to this after we 3-bet, just because most of the better pairs than tens here, like certainly aces and kings, don't really want to just rip. Like they want to make it like 12 bigs here. So this is just quite heavy on, I don't know, ace king, ace queen, maybe some ace five suited. This is a really awkward spot, but I do think that tens is probably has to call. It's not ideal, but I mean, I guess a lot of it's going to depend on how we perceive this player, because if we have any inkling, like if he seems like he's even potentially the kind of player who can do this with king three suited, we absolutely can never fold it.
Yeah.
The only way that doing this with king three suited ever becomes like somewhat decent is if his,
I didn't even see that. Didn't even see that raised.
yeah, it's crazy, right? Like he just comes along and just jams it. And she does fold the tens. Like
yeah.
it kind of like this does slightly better if she is taking that approach where she has no flats. But
Yeah.
based on how her 3-bet range is probably constructed here, I don't love this. It's kind of punty, but
Yeah.
you know, you can sometimes get away with it. Interesting. So this guy has tens, he jams, that's fine. Everyone folds, it's all good. Then we've got, I think he should open this. I don't think he has to like just be, like you can't just like never raise fold off of 15 bigs, but this hand is not quite strong enough to jam. So I think you should, the ace nine off is usually like a pretty good raise fold hand off this stack.
Yeah.
A lot
This
of the
seems
time.
pretty good.
So I think you should open that. Cut off raises, big blind calls. I would have liked to potentially see a 3-bet here from the big blind, but it might be a little bit of an overbluff if we do. Just depends on frequencies. She's down to 33 bigs now, so you know she's under a fair amount of pressure here. She's got what, like 16, 16%. So still a pretty high premium. Maybe not astronomically high, but you know this is certainly a 3-bet bluff candidate. Check. Okay, that seems good. Wow, just bings a 5. Okay. I would prefer to see a bigger bet here just because there's nothing that really has, like nothing has a tough spot against this size, right? Like when he bets this size, she's never folding a 6, a 10, or a jack. She's never even folding a 5. I would prefer to bet like 2/3 here just to kind of reflect the fact that when we do bet this turn, most of the time it's with like, when we bet this turn for value, it's with a strong 10 that check back the flop or a weak jack that check back the flop.
Yeah. It almost seems too nut dense when he's doing that.
Kinda. I mean, it like I say, it just doesn't
Like
really
you're not betting. Yeah, like you're not betting, I don't know, like 7, 8 of clubs on the turn for like third pot. You're betting.
Yeah, and you're also just like, to begin with, when you check back this flop, which is a really good flop for your range, you're not going to have that many, like you're not going to have that many checkbacks here overall anyway, right? Like it just, I'm a little surprised he even checked back 5s. I'm also quite surprised she called with ace-6 here. It's not a terrible bluff catcher because it does unblock a lot of bluffs, but at the same time, this is just not a line that I can see being over bluffed very easily. It just feels like this is, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't feel like pocket 5s that often, but it doesn't feel like, it just feels like most bluffs are not taking this line.
From the couple of hands I've seen, it seems like he's really willing to go wild post. I mean, but flop, it's like he plays really, really face up.
Yeah. This is too tight, like folding 5s here. I think it's always good to note that when there's a difference between having a high risk premium or being like a middle stack and being under a bit of pressure with a stack size that is fairly short versus you're under some pressure, but you still have 47 big blinds. Like this is, you just don't have to be super tight here because you're still a long way from the node where you get forced to play an all-in pot.
It's still a hand. It'll play like very face up. Well, not for some face. You play itself post like
right.
Or you don't.
Right. And you can still have like a range here. You know, you don't have to just have like nut hands. Ishan opens. I think this hand is pretty close, 9-7 off. It's probably like bottom of what Oscar can defend here, with
Mhm.
the short stack going through the big blind next hand and with another short stack now here, 19
Yeah.
bigs. I think he has to be quite cautious. I
Do you
would
like
like to,
if it was like a weaker player, do you like flooding a little bit wider?
I would say it's less a question of it being a weaker player and more a question of it being a player that plays a bit more passive post. Like it has to just be someone that they can be a kind of decent player, but if they're not particularly aggro, it becomes a little bit better.
Yeah, to
Um,
get speaks for equity.
but you know, Ishan he's a cash player. He's like competent enough that I would probably just fault this against him here.
Yeah, definitely not passive enough for it to be.
Yeah, I think so. Having said that, he should bet this flop because a lot of the normal stuff that the big blind would defend that interacts with this board can no longer defend when there's ICM in play. Like he doesn't have 4-3 off anymore here. He doesn't have like, probably doesn't have 6-5 off. Like that's pretty close. There's just a lot of stuff that is fairly strong here that can't be in range. And there's just too many overcards. A lot of pressure that Ishan can put on his range. Like he can get called by worse ace high. Like I would just bet this flop with ace jack here. This is terrible. This is like really not good. Not only in terms of size, in that there's not a lot that checks back the flop, and then well, I guess like maybe you're targeting like some king highs and like some just pure give ups, basically. But this is just a bad hand to bluff with here. This is not good.
Yeah.
Ishan calls.
In that sort of scenario, you'd just be giving up with that hand.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
this is just a give up hand. Like you have to be much more linear with your bluffs from out of position. Like you can't really very easily just take like stone nothing here, no pair, no draw, just two random overs and bluff. Like his bluffs here are going to be like a 5, a 6, a flush draw, you know, stuff like that. And then he's just going to value bet like a 3 or better or a deuce or better, basically. But yeah, you don't have to bluff this hand. Like if you're bluffing this hand, you're just like radically over bluffing.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So Ishan calls, river's an 8. He bluffs here. Like this is, yeah, I mean, I don't actually blame Ishan for calling here if Ishan had some kind of understanding that this guy is prone to over bluffing, because it's a pretty good combo to bluff catch with. The ace of spades, jack of diamonds doesn't block any bluffs. We wouldn't expect him to bluff ace high very often here. Most of his bluffs are going to be like stuff that's like king high or worse that has a 5 or a 6. So like king 5, king 6, queen 5, queen 6, jack 5, jack 6, you know, suited, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, this is a pretty reasonable bluff catch, I think. And it's
imagine it's just a giveaway as well. Like it seems like a very sizing for a bluff.
It's not. This is sort of
like half
weird.
point. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? It's like the value bet range that bets this size is pretty difficult to ascertain. Like you don't really bet this size with a 3. I mean, maybe you do to get called by ace high, but unless he's going to have two sizes where he bets like pot with a 4 and then half pot with a 3, it's just not, I don't know. I would just prefer to have a single size of just like 8 big blinds and then just bet that size with a 4 and some bluffs. And then, you know, that's, I don't know, I would simple there.
I would be inclined to be calling close to deck if someone's doing that against me.
Yeah. I mean, it's just really hard to fold when someone does that sort of thing. So like, yeah, it's a pretty big over bluff in that case, especially when you consider ICM. Okay. So chip leader is going to open. This is actually kind of a close open. It doesn't seem like it because he's chip leader opening into the short stack. But the problem is he has low cards, and like he would be better off having like king 6 off here than 6-5 suited, because he just isn't going to get flatted very often at all. And there's going to be very, very limited post flop play here when he has just such a massive chip lead and can put so much pressure on everybody. So I don't even think he needs to really have this hand to open here. He can just open. I mean, he could honestly have king 3 off here or ace deuce off, and he'd be better off. You know, I don't think it's likely to get punched, but it is noteworthy. And he calls with the 6-5 as well. That shove, call, chop it up. Okay, pocket 8s. I don't know why. This is what makes me think he's just kind of clicking buttons, because like, I don't know why he's going 2.5 suddenly. Like, doesn't make any sense.
Just hedging.
You know, I mean, maybe people do stuff like that for weird reasons. This is a good call with ace queen off. Flops a set, like this is absolute sun running. This is crazy. This size is pretty reasonable. There's a lot of pressure gets put on like a 10 or a 7 here. I don't know if ace queen with the ace of hearts can fold.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
It feels kind of dicey to fold. Just like Queen of Hearts, yeah, I would fold. Ace of Hearts, I'm not sure. I feel like we have to continue there. Ishan's going to open. That is tight.
Yeah, that's
It's not unreasonably tight, I don't think, given that it's big blinds, chip leader's big blind. So
Mhm.
specifically, Ishan's open range is going to be, or should be tighter here, point where King 10 suited is a bit dicey as a shove, but it's not unreasonable to jam it here.
yeah. Do you still think it just has to go in, or is there worlds where you can flat or like not all in?
You definitely can't flat when you're under this much pressure at 17. Like you just have there's no post flop play there. I think you can have some non all in three bets here. It's not completely ridiculous to do that, but I mean, I think fold might actually be best the more I think about it, just because of the tightness of this under the gun range, but it is close. This is a little weird. I would prefer flat here. Ace queen suited can't get it in, so three betting is a bit dicey. Ace six now just has a pretty trivial fold, I think. I don't think we really have any reason to consider continuing there, so we just muck, and that's all good. Okay, pocket sixes is the only playable one here, so we're just going to, oh, wow. Okay, I'll limp. That was surprising. I didn't expect that.
I think if you can live properly on the button, it's probably fine, but I'm not sure if he is.
You can't. Like ICM spots, you don't want to limp, or at least
Yeah.
outside of the small blind, you don't want to limp.
Yeah.
The chip leader being in the small blind, it just makes it even worse. Like,
Yeah.
this is not.
So I've seen some pros have like a limp strategy on the button, but
You can do it with chip EV.
yeah, but
It becomes pretty viable with chip EV, but the sheer like risk premium that you're under here, when you've got, you're at 20% against a small blind, like I mean, you have to raise a pretty tight range on the button here, probably like almost like an under the gun range, or not that much wider than that. But sixes is in that range, so I don't think I would limp here. Yeah, he just like donks out with nothing. Ishan folds a deuce, which is also kind of crazy. Yeah, this is a weird spot. He just finds another donk, starts calls again, and he just like brute forces his way through on 7 high, like really clicking buttons at this point, but like everyone's letting him get away with it. So, okay, eights is a good shove, good reasonable shove. Good call from Ishan as well. And big blind folds, and we get a bust out. So risk premium is going to change a lot now.
yeah,
As we get to six-handed, you can notice now that with the stack distribution being as it is, there's really only one player that has that massive risk premium now, and it's Ishan. Like, it's like 19, 21, 19, all that sort of thing. That is just that threshold where he really has to be very tight against chip leader. But he also is on the left of the chip leader here, which is, going to make it a little bit easier for him. The queen 10 suited, that's a tight fold. Like, again, like, yeah, chip leader's to your left, but that doesn't mean you just only play the top of the deck.
you got to be playing something.
Another limp. Like, this is why, I don't know why everyone's limping suddenly, but like, this is terrible. This is like just min raise. Like, you have both players behind you covered. Yeah, the big blind can't really defend very much, even though they're only 14 bigs deep. Like, just raise this hand. It's very weird. Ace king suited obviously has to raise, and now Jack 4 suited has to
Then
fold.
what do? Yeah, you're just watching money.
Yeah, I don't really understand that. This is a little weird, but I kind of understand it because both blinds are pretty short.
Yeah,
Tens gets it in. That's
deck.
especially weird. I mean, called with 9-8 off. Like, what the hell? This is like some serious button clicking. What a absolute gift to just give to her right there. So, okay.
In a position like this, yeah.
Yeah, right. So ace 4 off is going to open. That's fine. Ace 3 suited. Ace 3 suited getting it in. I'm not sure I love this simply because, like, you just saw this guy call off with 9-8 off.
Yeah.
Against a shove of like the same size. And I know that you're now the shortest stack, and this is close to like, I'm getting it in for value, but the small blind is like the position where you have to, or you can, I guess, be a little bit tighter than what ICM suggests you can, because if you look at it in future game terms, you've got like, you're not going to have to pay the big blind during any of the next 4 hands. So
Yeah.
anytime you run an FGS simulation, it's going to tell you play the small blind a little bit tighter because you've got 4 free hands coming up, basically. Yeah, he doesn't get called by ace 4 off, and like, they chop in the end, but it just sucks so much when just like ace 8 off just side calls it off, or you just get side called off by 10-9 suited, and you're just like flipping in a spot where, yeah, you're technically ahead, but
Do you always like it more if he has more chips behind? So
absolutely, I do. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
yes,
I think if he
hold it off.
100%, yeah, I think if he has like 17, he can definitely rip here because he's still the shortest stack, but now he has way more fold equity. The problem is to get it in a spot where you basically don't have any fold equity is like, is when there's ICM in play, you have to have way more equity because you have that risk premium on you here, even when you're the shortest stack. Like he has a premium against low jack of 8.2%, right? So he needs way better than ace 3 suited to get it in here. He probably needs like ace 9 suited, right? He needs to have
I think I like a fold there with
yeah.
ace 3.
I mean, I think you just have to fold. I don't think it's particularly close. I think he has to fold here, especially if he knows that he basically has no fold equity. He should have some fold equity there, but if he doesn't, he has to fold. Yeah. That's a good fold, actually. I think people will sometimes go with that, and that's a really good fold. That's also a reasonable fold as well. Okay, so now this guy has 4s. Okay, he limps again. Like, this is another one where it's like, I really feel like the impression I get from this guy so far, and I know he's the guy that ends up actually winning this thing, but the impression I get from this guy is that he is just basically wants to avoid playing a pot against the chip leader at all costs. So this is the kind of player that I would look at and I would say, okay, this is one of those guys who's overly, who's not elastic enough to ICM in the direction of assuming that ICM is stronger than what it actually is. So he's assuming here that the ICM impact of this situation is more significant than what it really is. Like his premium here against small blind, it's 16.6%, which is definitely not insignificant, but it's, and it is high, but like, again, you're at the node, you're a long way away from the all-in node yet, right? You're still just opening the button. Now,
would you funny against this Davenport guy? I'd almost like a raise knowing that the small blind is going to be over aggressing against you and then just sticking it in his eye.
I don't think that's terrible. What I would say is that by default, 4s is probably more of a fold here. Like we're not going to have any hands that limp here, and 4s, 3s and deuces probably fold, and then 5s plus would just open. And I think I would prefer to be jamming it with some kind of blocker type stuff, but low pairs are pretty decent for that as well. The only problem with having a low pair is that you double block like ace 4 suited, ace 4 off, which are hands that he's probably going to block. He's probably going to bluff with at some decent frequency, which is kind of why a lot of these 4-bet jam spots with ICM, you kind of prefer having suited broadways and middle pocket pairs because the low pairs and the ace blockers actually block a lot of their 3-bet bluffs. Like you want him to have like the king 4 suited, the ace 4 offs, all that stuff here. So
that makes sense.
I don't hate just jamming because he's over 3-betting, but I do hate limping here. It's not good. He's going to donk again from small blind because why wouldn't he? Because everybody folds to him every time. And yeah, okay. Ishad is like, man, Ishad is the min raising from the small blind, which is like not a thing. It's just not a thing at all. This is fine with queens. Like it's kind of weird to think about what a 3-bet size is good here, because normally when someone opens from the small blind, it's going to be large. And so your big blind 3-bet is going to be quite small. But when someone min raises from the small blind, I think it's reasonable to take a bigger size because your 3-bet range actually is naturally going to become much more polar here. So I think this is okay. And obviously king 8 off is going to fold. Shot from ace queen off is good. What he folds, ace 9 suited opens, small blind defends. This is probably too wide. I think even off the short, big blind defense, sorry. Even off the shortest stack, I think this might be too wide. Okay. So he might be, I think, Oscar here might be on the opposite side where he's not adapting enough to ICM because we saw the ace 3 suited jam. We saw the 9-7 off defend. So these two guys, Christopher and Oscar, I think are opposites of each other. Christopher is like over adapting and Oscar is under adapting basically. David's going to open. seems fine. Christopher folds king five off. Yeah, I mean, that is close, but like, yeah, he's over adapting, I think. And can't open king nine off into chip leader's big blind. Oscar does fold ace three off, which is good. Yeah, that's like crazy. To fold a suited queen here, like, I know you only have 28 bigs, but folding this hand is implying that your VPIP here is like less than 40%, which is just insane from the small blind. So we should not fold that hand. David Jackson opens Jack 10 off. Don't love that. Not terrible, but don't love it. Again, ace 10 off. Like, this guy is just at this point, like, he's just literally got no 3-bet bluffs in him at this stage, because this is a reasonable spot to 3-bet bluff when you're up against the stack that is not the chip leader. And if you're ever going to do it at a final table, like, this is a decent spot to do it, but he doesn't do it. Davenport just, calls queen 7 suited in the small blind. This is actually not bad. This is probably okay, because he
Me that deep, it's okay. Right?
yeah, I mean, normally it wouldn't be against low jack, but the sheer ICM leverage that he has here, he has 21% risk premium. Well, low jack has 21% against him, and he only has 5% against low jack. Like, he just has so much equity he can realize here. Ishan does fold, check, fold. Okay, yeah, that seems fine, I think. Okay. Chip leader's going to raise. Yeah, again, he's making it 2.5. I really don't know why. I think the last time it was David Jackson's big blind too. Maybe, I can't remember. But I wonder if maybe he's thinking that it's correct to raise 2.5 when the second place stack is in the big blind, but that's just not how it works. So he's kind of wrong. It is what it is. Five's going to jam. That's fine. Everybody folds.
It'd be closed from low jack, wouldn't it? Or I guess because it's six-handed now.
I think you're fine. I think you're fine shoving fives from low jack for 12 there. King queen suited. This I would prefer to just jam. I know you have a short stack behind, but I don't think you realize enough equity by calling here. I would prefer to just jam. This is like terrible.
You're really worried, right? You'd just be like 3-betting half your stack. And then
yeah, exactly. Like, you can do that. You can 3-bet to like, or even not half your stack, but you can 3-bet to like 6 here. And then if the big blind gets it in, and then the button happens to re-ISO, you just fold. Yeah. I mean, big blind calling 5 deuce here is terrible. Like, this is torching. 3 ways with the caller here is covered by the raiser. Caller's playing out of position against the raiser. Like, this is a great opportunity to just let this pot play out and potentially have somebody bust, and you could just ladder up. But instead, he decides to take a flop with 5 deuce off. Betting with, wow, this is even worse of a torch. Betting with the king deuce is not ideal here. It's okay, but it's just a hand that has a pretty decent incentive to check back when the big blind is short. We do get shoved on, and we fold like crazy. First of all, it's kind of crazy that the 5 deuce found a jam here.
Yeah.
Or they're even in the pot to begin with, and they found a jam. And then it's also crazy that king deuce folded, given the price that it's getting, right? Like, he's calling 9 to win 21, and he has an overcard and bottom pair on a board texture where there's a bunch of gut shots. Like, I don't understand how he folds here, but people like to fold. Ace jack. Okay, queen 6. This is like, it's funny because this is like his first 3-bet. So this just strikes me as like he's slightly tilted after the last hand. And this is kind of weird. The tiny click back, because
I don't think he gets fooled by worse, right?
I mean, he doesn't, in theory, he's not really going to get flattered very much at all. I think the thing about this is, like, this is very relevant in some cases where you're just not going to have any kind of a flatting range against the 3-bet. But I don't think this is necessarily one of those spots. Like, final table ICM is not like bubble ICM. And there are some spots here where he can just flat this 3-bet. And this is a good hand.
Do you think I mean, like, obviously the hand isn't a great choice, but do we think he's just going to be full betting heaps wider because he assumes that the cutoff is going to be 3-betting heaps wider?
I doubt it.
Is that,
I don't think this is going to be a product of deliberately full betting wider. I think this is just going to be a product of, he's basically deciding to take a strategy where he's going to have no flats. And so everything that he's continuing, he's just clicking back. And then if he gets jammed on, he's going to fold this hand. It's not the worst strategy in the world. I just think that he can have flats here, and ace jack suited is a reasonable one to do it with.
Yeah.
I don't think it's likely to be any kind of assumption about the cutoff because there's just nothing to show so far that the cutoff is going to be three betting excessively wide. There's just no
Yeah.
reason to think that. So Jack 10's a fold, King Queen. Yeah, he's limping now. That's probably okay in this spot. Flops Queen, check, check. He's really not even going to bet. Okay, check, call, check, check. Okay. Yeah, so he played this the absolute most passive way that he could, even though a queen is like very strong on that flop. It's not the nut, but it's very strong on that flop. Okay. This is actually a spot where Ishan is probably supposed to mix raises quite a lot. Like your raising range in the big blind here is going to be really polar. Like you basically raise your trashiest offsuit stuff and then some really strong stuff, and you go with a really big size. So you can raise here. Yeah, this is torching, like betting the turn is torching here, but he's been torching all vinyl tables. So yeah, I mean, Ishan seems to have kind of recognized like, well, one of two things is happening here. Either Ishan just doesn't really fold rivers very much, or he's kind of recognizing that some of these players are over bluffing. The calling river with the 9 here, it seems like, oh, well, I just faced a, two big blind bet here. Like, how do I fold a 9? The thing though is that this is a 40% pot bet. And for this size, the value betting region is basically a jack or better. Like he can't realistically value bet an 8 for this size. So a 9 is still a bluff catcher, right? Like it's still just a hand that is not beating any value. I mean, it depends on whether he like tanked over it here or whether he just snapped. Let's try to see if we can see the footage. How long is he going to take? Probably not long. So the hand's about to end here. Yeah, he calls pretty quickly. Like that just seems like, yeah, he probably doesn't recognize that the value range is actually just a jack plus there, but not a big deal. Ace 9 does open here, which is good. I like this from Shindan. David Jackson's going to call. Jack 10 deuce. C-bet range is fine here. Range is very tight to begin with, and big blind's defending wide still, so we're fine with that. Ace 10 calls. I would have liked to see a barrel from the Ace 9 there. It's not a board texture where we really care that much about getting check jammed on because it's very rarely going to happen, especially when we have a 9. Like if we have a 9 and we get check jammed on, we should just assume it's 2 pair most of the time because having a 9 makes it quite unlikely that we're up against either a straight or a bluff. So it's just going to be Jack 8, 10 8 a lot of the time. I think I would bet turn. He bets 1.5 on river. This is kind of weird. This is a bit of a misappropriation of a block bet, really, or blocker bet, where people think that a blocker bet is like designed to. People think that it's just purely designed to actually stop your opponent from value betting or something. But in fact, a blocker bet is just a really small value bet. And the thing about this is that if you try to go through, what hands can actually call that are actually worse than Ace 10 on this board, problem is there aren't really any, right? Like if you did this with a weak jack, that would be a bit more logical. Maybe, Ace 10, King 10, Queen 10 suited, possibly. Not really a lot else. Like Ace 10 is pretty thin here. So I don't love block betting in this case. Sure. Yeah, this is way too small of a raise. Like when you raise the river here, you have a 9 or a bluff. So you should pretty much just be jamming. Like I think the size, what's that? Sorry.
But that he called Ace 10 is crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't really understand it, but the size that I would go with here is like 14 bigs or something. Like leave yourself enough big blinds for a full orbit behind. But really you're targeting like the 2 pairs. Like you have a straight, your value range for raising the river is a straight or a bluff, or your range for raising the river is a straight or a bluff. And when you have a straight, you're targeting 2 pair. Like you're not raising like a jack for value here. So going small like this, which is just like such a crazy tiny raise, just doesn't really make a lot of sense. Okay. King, queen. Oh, this guy finally played a hand. Okay. So he finally raises. Then he gets 3 bet. Now he's going to fold. Yep. There we go. Okay. Okay. 9-6 off, just opening for no reason. Like 2.5 against the guy who doesn't fold his big blind. Like this is, again, everyone's clicking buttons at this final table. I would actually prefer not to flat with Ishan's hand here. I think against the chip leader specifically when he's second place, he has a bit more reason to not flat here, especially when the open is a bit larger. Like there's not a lot of good things that can come from flatting here. Um,
Yeah.
and there's 3 covering stacks behind, so he's not going to really be speculating a lot in this hand. I think I would prefer to just have a range that 3 bets to like 7 here and just not really
Yeah.
flat anything.
And I also don't think the hijack is going to have 4-bet bluffs, to be honest. Like he's been pretty wild with his jams, but
Uh-huh.
I think he's doing that when he perceives weakness.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I think it's hard to interpret. Like, I think you're probably right that he might not have a ton of 4-bet bluffs, but like ultimately the nature of the spot is that even if he does have 4-bet bluff, we're folding. Like this is a 3-bet
Yeah.
bluff, so
Yeah.
it's like the, this isn't really a spot where his 4-bet bluff range is particularly relevant. It's mostly just a question of, his range is very wide. He's opening basically every offsuit Broadway here. Jack 10 suited is a hand that has a lot of incentive to 3-bet to clear out a lot of that offsuit Broadway stuff. And it has limited incentive to flat, especially when the open is larger. So I would probably not want to do much flatting here. Check, check, flop, which is fine. Bet small, which is okay. And then call on turn, river check. How do we, what is going on? People are checking back. Like he just checks back a straight in like the tiniest pot of all time. Like what is going on, man? Like if you're looking at a straight here and being like, you like, oh, I can't value bet a straight on this river because I just lose to a full house too often or I lose to a flush too often, then there's absolutely no way that flatting is profitable here. There's no shot if you can't value bet when you make a straight in a spot like this. So
You
this
only
is kind
hit
of,
when you flat there, right?
yeah, like it just, I mean,
Mhm.
and on top of that, like Davenport he just has a queen. Like sometimes he just has like a king with a diamond sometimes. There's just a bunch of hands that he could theoretically decide to call you with here. Yeah, I really don't understand checking back a jack here at all. You just at least have to bet. Like you can't just be so paranoid about a check raise that you don't bet. He opens the ace 3. It's fine. It's gone back to min raise again. Okay, it's that one through. I think we're going to get another bust out here. Jackson's going to open. Davenport is going to call. Donks, which is fine. Call is good. That's good. This is weird. It's funny. I wouldn't hate a jam here, but this size
Yeah.
is very weird. Like this size doesn't make any sense. I mean, he did call it off. So like, I understand that he basically is just doing that. He's just shoving essentially without actually putting his whole stack in, but it's definitely weird, but he gets a double up, which is kind of interesting. So we do get big pot finally. Sevens. Well, I'm not sure if 7 wants to just jam here. I think it does. I think 7s prefers to just rip this one. King's 3-bet small. This guy puts it in against chip leader and loses. So we go down to 5. Still a couple
I
more
think
hands. We've got a little bit more time.
I think that's the reason why you jam, right? Because you get jammed on by worse. And
Yeah.
I don't think 7s can, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like, it's weird, right? Because if you get jammed on by worse often enough, you can just call. But I think the problem is that when you raise with 7s, you don't have enough equity against the jamming range to offset the risk premium that you have. But you also, you have a pretty good hand, and there are certain instances where players might maybe not fold better, but they certainly are going to fold hands that have a lot of equity against 7s. So I might be more inclined to just jam 7s there, but it's close. He opens the 5, queen 7 calls, check, check, seems fine, check, bet, call, okay, check, bet. Yeah, this is kind of weird. Like, I kind of understand this, but at the same time, it's like such a small bet into a, yeah, I mean, you're betting so small in a spot where he chops the pot at a really high frequency when he calls. So like, there's no usefulness to the small bet here. You know what I mean? Like you either should bet big or you not bet at all. So it's just kind of weird, but maybe he just thought that the guy was going to confuse himself into folding or something. I don't know. But it's a couple more. So he's going 2.4 here. I don't know why, but he's doing that a lot. Making a bunch of folds. Probably just a product of whatever the blind level was. Okay. Folding king 7 is pretty tight in small blind now. That's folding jack 10 suited on the button is super tight. Like he has 2 covering stacks behind him, but he's the shortest stack. Like this is just a slam dunk shove. This is such a clear shove. 9-5 off. Chip leader actually folds a small blind, which is surprising. Okay, now he opens. That's also fine. Yeah, call from Ishan seems fine here in the small blind. It's a bit dicey to play 3-bet or fold here or to not play calls because you just are gonna get forced to fold so much. Like you're not gonna be able to play post very easily. This is interesting. Open ender plays pair plus flush draw. This is actually a spot I've run sims for this in. I've run a lot of multi-way sims for spots a bit like this, and it's surprisingly common when you get into this type of spot, when you face like a medium-ish kind of bet and then a call, that if you have like queen, like 5x of hearts, like you just jam like every time, because you then are putting both, like a lot of parts of both players' ranges in tough spots. Like you're jamming like pair plus flush draw, and you're putting their flush draws in a tough spot because their flush draws lose to pair and a flush draw. And you're also putting a lot of their one pair in a tough spot as well.
Yeah,
I would like jamming here, I think, with 5x of hearts. It's one of those spots too, where like, if you have 5x of hearts and you jam, you can almost like turn your hand face up and there's no X, you know what I mean? It's like, there's not very many things that he can do differently here to exploit you. Just knowing
the nut flush draw hates live over pairs.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, this is like a mandatory lead spot for a big blind here. Ishan never has a 5 really. Big blind has tons of 5x when it goes check, bet, call. Like he should close his eyes and lead a lot here. And he doesn't. This is kind of torching, but okay. If he's going to bet, he has to bet a lot smaller here to basically put some pressure on some of the weaker portions of both ranges. Like for Ishan, he's putting pressure on like maybe like some low pocket pairs, possibly like under pairs, maybe even. And then for big blind, he's putting pressure on a 4. But this isn't enough to put a 9 in a tough spot necessarily. And he obviously gets wrecked by a 5 here. So I don't love this. Wow. Crazy river. Yeah, I don't love this either. Like, I mean, I guess it's just a bluff, but like, why are you trying to get a 9 to fold? Like, that's it. But a 9, I don't know. Like, he doesn't have a lot of offsuit 9x pre. He doesn't call every 9 on the turn, I guess, against that size. This just strikes me as like, it's just brute force. Like, he's just like,
and I don't know. I feel like the big blind is super dense to flush draws when they're just flatting twice as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is going to have a lot of flush draws, and I also think like it's noteworthy that neither of the 5s here is a heart, right? So like every single 5x of hearts can still be in his range, and that just means that not only does he have a flush, he also has a house blocker, which is extremely valuable. So yeah, chip leader kind of wrecked himself there. Probably not necessary to blast off with this one. In fact, one thing that's also quite relevant here is this exact type of hand is blocking a lot of both players' folding ranges on the turn. It's blocking like a lot of the 7-6 combos that they might fold. Like the 6 of clubs is not a great card to have there. So yeah, a little bit too aggro there. David Jackson doubles up. Let's put a pin in it for now, because we got one more, so we can kind of finish off this final table next time and just sort of keep talking about some of these dynamics of how we might approach some of these players who are making some weird plays and errors.
Yeah, great. I like it.
Cool. Sounds good. All right, man. Well, that's good for now. Me wrap it up right there. But yeah, I'll talk to you same time next week, and we'll carry on.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks.
Sounds good. All right. See ya. That's it for part 1 of our WSOP $1,500 final table review. In the next session, we're going to pick up right where we left off and keep digging into the big decisions and some ICM spots from this final table. If you found today's breakdown useful, make sure to like the video and drop a comment with your biggest takeaway. I'd love to hear what stood out for all of you. And remember, I've got some discounted coaching deals available right now, so if you're interested in working with me directly and getting this kind of detailed analysis for your own game, send me an email at pokerfluency@gmail.com and I'll share all the details and we can set up a consultation. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss part 2 of this series, and I will see you there in that video. Thanks.